Hey guys, Mike from Connect to German back with another video. Today we're going to be looking at the simple past. This is part one, so I'm just going to introduce it, tell you what it is, and how it is that we conjugate it. What you're going to need to know for this, just a couple things. Just have some experience with some common verbs as we go through the past tense forms. It'll be better if you're familiar with what their present tense forms look like. Also, basic subject-verb conjugation, as I'll discuss. There's no way that we can get away from German always requiring subject-verb conjugation. Alright, so let's get into it. Two kinds of past tense. There's the spoken past tense, which we're not going to cover so much in this video, but just in case you're familiar with this, you've seen it before, you might be thinking, oh, well, I learned a different kind of past tense. Maybe this is the one that you learned, and actually this spoken past it's generally what you learn first. Here's an example. Ich habe an der Uni studiert. And basically how that's broken down is you have a helping verb, in this case habe, and you have your participle, studiert. And that's your basic form for the spoken past. It's also referred to as the perfect, if maybe your teachers talked about it that way, or you've read that in a book somewhere. Now, the second form, which we're going to focus on in this video, is the written past. Here's an example. Ich studierte an der Uni. Studierte with te at the end. Notice how te is a very common ending for this. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's a common ending. And this is also what's known as the imperfect, in case you've seen that before in a book or you've heard that from your teacher. Now, as I said, this written past, this simple past, is what we're going to be focusing on for this video. Even though the other past tense that I made reference to, usually I said you normally cover that first. You don't need to understand that in order to understand this video. Okay? So let's get into some examples of the simple past, or the written past. Ich spielte Fußball als Kind. As a kid, I played soccer. So now we're focusing on the simple past form. Played is represented here by spielte. Notice how it has that te ending. It's pretty much the same as the ed ending in English. In this case, spielte, obviously we're taking it from the infinitive spielen, which is to play. And how we form that is first, as I already said, we take the infinitive form, or dictionary form, spielen. We cut off the en on the end of it, so we're left with spiel, and we add a te. So there we have our new end. Our te is our new ending. That's how we come up with ich spielte. And as I'll repeat in a second, it has an e on the end, spielte with an e, because it's agreeing with ich. Can't get away from subject-verb agreement anywhere in German. Alright, second example. Du spieltest Fußball als Kind. Pretty much like the first one, with the exception of, instead of I being the one doing it, it's you. As a kid, you played soccer. So there we have our two verbs. Spieltest represents played. Notice how, in the English, you still have ed at the end. It doesn't change much. But in German, it does. It changes to that test. The German does change there. So if we look, ich spielte is I played. Du spieltest, that est there is you played. So we have to agree with the subject of the sentence. But it's going to start mainly with this te ending at the end, and then we add them on depending on whether it's I played, you played, we played, they played, that sort of thing. So pretty simple construction here. Yeah, and as I mentioned here, yeah, all verbs have to agree, no exception to the rule. All right. So to recap on how these follow the basic conjugation patterns, why I said you should have some a good idea of how verbs conjugate. Looking at present, ich spiele, with an E on the end, I play. Well, we still have that E for the past tense, ich spielte. If we wanted to say you play in present tense, it would be du spielst with an ST on the end. Well, the past tense also has that ST ending. So we're still following those patterns. We're just adding something, just one little extra thing in here, in this case, it happens to be a T. Okay. Now it is your turn. Du bist dran. We want to try to say, I heard the song. Obviously, it's in the past tense. And what you're going to need to know, obviously, if we recap on how we actually form the past tense, number one, we have to know the infinitive, the dictionary form of our verb. In this case, to hear. It's hören. So now we have to form the past tense in order to say, I heard the song. Here's our template. So we have I blank the song. All right, and that form, if you got it, is hörte. Ich hörte das Lied. I heard the song. All right, let's go on and do another example. I bought the pants. What do we need to know? The verb's infinitive to buy is kaufen. Now let's set up our form so that we can try to say, I bought the pants. Ich blank die Hose. So we need that past tense. What is it? And there it is. Ich kaufte die Hose. Simple past form of kaufen. Alright, let's do one more example. Change it up a little bit. Now the subject is not I, it's you. Keep in mind the verb has to agree with it. But let's start off with the infinitive first. Infinitive of believe is glauben. Alright, so let's set up our little template here. Du blank meinem Freund. Okay, so make sure it agrees with du, but make sure that glauben is in the past tense, the simple past tense. And there it is. Du glaubtest meinem Freund. That T at the end of glaub to signal the past, and our typical ST. In this case, we threw an extra E there right in the middle between the T and the S, just to give it a little bit more space so it's not a tss right next to it. Alright. Now, that was just a basic intro of walking you through the simple past. As we mentioned, we showed you how to form it from the infinitive, and we also referred to the simple past as the written past. Written past because this is what you're going to be using in when you're writing things like academically. This is probably when you're writing letters. It's definitely what you're going to read in the newspaper, what you're going to read if you read a book in German. They're going to put things in the simple past or the written past. So it is important to be able to at least recognize this if you want to be able to read it, and practice forming it if your goal is also writing. What is coming up in part 2? At the very beginning, we're going to go through a quiz. How do we form the simple past? If you're unclear about that, you can always go back to this video and review beforehand. Number 2, we're going to review when would we use the simple past, as opposed to the other past tense that I talked about at the beginning. And finally, we do have an exception to this rule. I will discuss that next time. It's not necessarily a case of right or wrong. It's really just an exception in the way the language is used. Okay? So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Make sure to stop by Connect to German for more tips for learning German.